Okay, folks. Well, look, it looks as though the vast majority of attendees have kicked in, so we are going to rock and roll. Yeah, no pants again today, Bobby. In fact, today is about being a shark. And as business owners, we need to be sharks. So I've got shark pants on, and I've actually got shark budgie smugglers on. Big plug to budgie smugglers. Give them a go. It's also about, today's about being Australian and having a bit of a laugh. So as a result of that, I wanted to take this as an opportunity for us to remember a couple of things. So guys, look, to give you some context, I think we're a little bit more organised this week, which would be great. Beck Menz in our office has done a fantastic job again of giving me a hand, so thanks, Beck. The way today's going to work, a bit of a change of scenery. We're using my office today. I'm going to use my office simply because I want to be able to demonstrate a couple of things that I'm doing in my day to help me get through at the moment, and what I've been focusing on since I came back in January. A lot of the theme for us as a practice and us as a team was quite interesting. We came back in January and we decided to roll out and create a bit of a plan for a couple of things, and all this has done for us is actually accelerate that. So I think today I'm effectively going to talk about some of the things we need to consider are probably things we should already be doing anyway, and if we're not, we can map out what that looks like and where we go from here. So as a whole, you all would have seen the email link with the, let's call it the agenda for how we're going to deal with today. I'm going to get that up on my other screen over here. So effectively, we're going to work through the 10 key points that are on there, which is what we should focus on in the next 2 weeks, what's happening with the stimulus, what opportunities do we have out there, what options are on the table post 30 June. And I think it's really important to start thinking about that now because it's 12 weeks away. It's actually not that far. And there might actually be further opportunities from a cash perspective that we could utilise to be able to help us get us through these things. How do we navigate things with creditors and landlords, and vice versa the other way? There's been some interesting updates in that area this week. And not only that, the insolvent trading provisions and statutory demand provisions that have come into play. The eject button, I'm going to talk about that today. I'm trying to work out if I'm looking at the camera or looking at the screen. So if I stuff that up, forgive me. The eject button. I've spoken to quite a few clients this week, quite a few potential clients, and just friends in general about what on earth is happening at the moment. And I think it's important before we look at the eject button, what those options are or are not. What are you doing with your team? You know, we at MWM, our motto through this is MWM must and will succeed. And I have said to my team from the get-go that our #1 priority is preserving the health and well-being of our team, not only in terms of actually actively looking after their health and what we're doing as employers around that, but what are we doing with mental health? What are we doing to support them in a longer-term situation? Understanding their personal circumstances. If there's ways where, unfortunately, we've had to put team members off, what does that conversation look like? And what is it that we could potentially be doing just to help support them in other ways? Maybe we've got leftover computers, maybe we've got raw materials, maybe we've got shit lying around our business that could help other people at the moment. What's the go with the government 250 bank guarantee? That's a really interesting one. A bit surprised to learn this week, quite a few people don't know about it, so we'll be talking about that. Rebuilding and leadership, and the rear view mirror of reflection. So that's the guts of all of it. I'm going to burn through it pretty quick today so that we can hit the Q&A. Just remember that, guys, we've got 2 forms for those that are in Zoom. Anyone that's in Zoom, if you can hit any of your questions whilst we're going along, hit them in the Q&A, not in the chat bot. That way we can keep the 2 of them separate. Any of you that want to have a crack at my dress sense or have a little chippy, snidey comment, happy to do so. In fact, we're Australians, we need to do that. Stick that in the chat. Throw some banter around in there, but the Q&A in particular, hit the Q&A questions up as you go. We'll try and monitor. Love the LA cap. Thanks, Amir. West Coast, not East Coast. I was actually planning to go to New York later this year to try and get an East Coast hat. So we'll see how we go. So hit it in there. Beck's also monitoring Facebook Live. So we'll go to that as well. So look, first and foremost, guys, I'm actually going to start with a theme. And the theme for today which I've got written down here. I'm kind of going to read from some notes as well. And I need to caveat all of this. Today is very much directed at business owners. And the reason I say it's directed at business owners is, for me, this is about leadership. These times right now are about leadership. For those of you that saw my post during the week, I sent an email out to all our clients in an individual basis per accountant set, because I need our clients to understand how important they all are to not only myself, but also the team. It also went out through our comms channels on Thursday, Friday. In general, on our EBMs, there was a link at the bottom which spoke about a chap named Ken Blanchard. Ken Blanchard, in my opinion, is the doyen of leadership. People are starting to worry about what they're going to do with their spare time. Their spare time, they should be investing in themselves. This guy is absolutely awesome. And to save you sifting through 87,000 different YouTube clips of this guy, I've actually posted a link for you in there on a very, very, very good clip which talks about leadership and how easy it is to change energy in the room. Everything that's going to get us through is all about energy. So make sure you click on that Ken Blanchard link. If you don't want to listen to the whole thing, that's fine. I've given you the shortcuts in relation to where to go to start what that piece looks like. For those of you that also didn't get last week's webinar and all the notes and attachments associated with that, hit us up in the Q&A as well, and we'll make sure we get that to you. This week, we're going to be more organised, and we'll be sending a lot more stuff out a lot earlier on. And I actually plan to make this a weekly thing. In addition to making this a weekly thing, I'm going to start laying down content in relation to specific things we should be doing, i.e., I will have one on Queensland government stimulus. I will have one at a local level. I will have one on all the federal strategies that should be going on. So stay tuned for those as well. We're certainly going to get organised in this space so that we can spread the word and spread the message and help you guys. So I'm going to come back to leadership. So where I'm starting with leadership, folks, and this is a conversation I've had quite a few people this week. In my opinion, I think we're forgetting that we're Australians. I'm not seeing across media as a whole, I'm not seeing that enough in my opinion. We're a different world and we're a different country these days. But I grew up in northwest WA. I grew up in a tiny little mining town called Dampier. Those of you that don't know where Dampier is, if you've watched Red Dog, the movie, it's that tiny little town. I'll start welling up when I talk about that place because it's a magical part of the world. So Dampier's this tiny little mining town. It's 1,600 people. And I had the privilege of growing up there in the late 80s and through the 90s. And something that highlighted for me is how much Australians care about each other. We've all gotten lost in noise and these things and what's on social media and everything else. And we're so quick to criticise these days when we're fucking Australians. What do Australians do when all this happened? What happened to the Anzacs? How did the Anzacs get through all these things? I know times have changed, but as Australians, we don't piss and moan. That's not who Australia is. This is genuinely an opportunity for us to look at what reset is, reflect on everything, and come back to it. So as a result, my theme today is a little bit about reflection. And when we're making decisions and choices, is that the Australian way? Is that what we do? And is that what we're known for? There's a bunch of people that have been through a bunch of things prior to us. And yes, they say it's worse than the Great Depression and it's worse than all those other things. We also have access to each other. We also have tools these days to deal with things in a much better light. Big shout out to, by the way, for anyone who's in Dampier who might be watching, in particular the Bruce family, Mr. and Mrs. Bruce and their 4 boys, and also the Heath family. Hey guys, I better also make a big shout out to my old man, Steve Marshall, Poppy Steve, as he's known to all my mates, because he's an awesome guy. So, as a result of us being Australians, in some ways, guys, we actually have to accept that we have to get on with it. This thing's here. Us jumping up and down about it isn't going to help. My utmost sympathies go to any business that's been forced to close and has struggled in relation to those things. I genuinely accept that, and this in no way, shape or form is targeted at them. I think that's some of the toughest things that are floating around. I also think in relation to that, and having spoken to a couple of clients in that field, we might be forgetting at the moment that there are actually a few mechanisms in play that could very well get us through. At the end of the day, provided we've exhausted all avenues that are available to us through this next 2 weeks, 1 month, 3 months, provided we've considered all of those at all times and how they interconnect with each other, then absolutely, sometimes there's some extra things that we need to cover. And for those of us that are in situations where we're keeping our businesses going, we need to look at opportunities and ways that we can potentially help others. In my business, we've moved our entire team this week offline. I have said to my entire team, my view is to find a way to keep us all going through this and to get out the other side. That is our number one preference. That may not exist for everyone. I absolutely appreciate that. But this is where, as business owners, this is actually what business ownership is. For those that want to run a business when it's easy, well, yeah, you're not really a business owner. And I'll go out on a limb here in saying that, because business is actually about turbulence. It's not about the easy times. It's about the hard times and what you do at those hard times, because those hard times define who you are. So that's a point I've actually made at the end. At the moment, when we make these next decisions and we go through all this local, state, federal stuff and everything else we need to do, I want you to consider 2 things. One is, what do Australians do? 2 is the rear view mirror of reflection is really important. So is a jar of hindsight. You need to consider, when making decisions as of today, what does this look like down the track? Because there's going to be a bunch of people out there that will judge you for it. That's on them. But this is also an opportunity for you to genuinely define who you are during these toughest moments. It's quite amazing you see on social media, and I've even seen in my own groups and chats and seeing people out there. Sometimes you're quite amazed at the decisions people are making because we might be forgetting a couple of those key things. So let's just bear in mind the decisions you make today. What's that going to look like in 6 months' time? We also need to remember, when we judge ourselves on those decisions, we need to make decisions with the most amount of information available to us as of today. If it's the case that we have to make really tough decisions that down the track look as though it wasn't the best decision to make, well, we can't be judged on that, because the information we knew down the track is different to the information we know now. I'm going to work out which way the hand goes. In saying all of that, I've seen far too many people this week make quick decisions, which once we get to the end of a conversation, they forget that maybe they actually should do. As a result of that, I'm going to start by talking about break even. And how, in fact, when we're running our businesses, we could find ourselves in a situation where maybe we can actually keep the doors open in some way, shape or form, or there is light at the end of the tunnel. Before we do that, I'm actually also going to say that I saw this during the week, and this was a post that I thought was important. We're going to put this up on our link. And this was actually a post about our Australian Prime Minister. So here it is. Here's a photo of ScoMo. He's walking out after some form of Treasury meeting or something. I've been invited into a few federal calls this week, and I can tell you that Canberra, at a federal level, those guys aren't sleeping down there. They're working their ass off. It reads, 1, imagine the stress of being the man standing at the front right now. Look at this picture. It tells 1,000 words. Imagine how much sleep the man and his team aren't getting. They're exhausted. He is only delivering the message from a panel of experts with all the info, not just what we think we know about. Imagine if we knew all the facts, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. He's also a parent, remember, and he must have the same concerns about sending his kids to school, but has to follow the party lines himself. Imagine if he bucked the advice of experts. If they close everything, that's martial law, army on the streets to shoot looters, etc., and madness will erupt. We can't even imagine what will happen to our elderly for food and essentials. Imagine what happens if the arseholes come out when we go into lockdown. Now, who else would you like to be in his job right now? Imagine if Gillard or Rudd was leading us through this. Let's just be glad we have a real leader at the moment, and we should all work together. My rant over. And please, I respect your views too, so please respect mine. I saw that online. I thought that was quite pertinent at the moment. So we're actually going to go with that, and I'm going to give us a little bit of context on the situation here, which is that we have an Australian government working between two things. One is we've got health concerns that we need to worry about and how we manage that and this whole curve thing. The other side is the financial consequences of what's going on. And as a result of that, I just want to share a screen or two with you that's going to have some links in it, which can demonstrate the biggest challenge that, in my opinion, that the government's got is finding that balance between the two. Is it too much of one and not enough of the other? We're in a situation in Australia where the amount of average household mortgage debt relative to earnings and everyone's savings is extremely tough. It's surprised me a little bit to hear, well, it doesn't actually surprise me. It concerns me, and this is the reason we've been running seminars for quite some time within our own business, around the fact that every business in the proper scenario of planning should always have working capital for lumps and bumps. It sounds a little bit hard to hear, but the textbooks will all say it, and practicality all says it. You should always have several months of reserves floating around in your business for things. Absolutely, when you've got businesses going through growth profiles that are really staggering and they're stretched to the limit, then 110% it should be the case that that's probably going to be really tight. However, for established businesses that have been around for a long period of time, this is something that's really important. And what's occurred now is it's been demonstrated very quickly what happens when the tap turns off. So some of the stats that we've got floating around, and I'll just work out how to share the screen. What do I do here, Beck? I just hit share screen, don't I? Household debt. All right, here we go. And share. All right, so folks, this is on the ABS. This is the ABS website. So the ABS website here talks for us about, based on the ratio of debt to either income or assets, around 3 in 10 households were 3 in 10 or 29% were classified as over indebted. So that's 1 in 3. Have a look at some of these stats down here. 33%, 25 to 34, 35 to 44, 34%. Of these households with property debt, 62% and 51% were over indebted. High income households have also struggled with that. Sydney and Melbourne in particular are problematic, and the same with average home loans. This is the stat here. Now, this information is a little bit old. The ABS don't necessarily release this every year. So this is in 2015-16. In my view, this has only continued and accelerated. In 2016, most over-in-debt households, 77% of them, lack sufficient liquid assets to cover a quarter of the value of their debts. Liquid assets represent anything that can be converted easily into cash, like bank accounts, shares, that's a tough one at the moment, owning a business, and superannuation. Lack of liquid assets may place over-indebted households at risk or default if their incomes are not sufficient. That, in my opinion, that right there, folks, is one of the most significant reasons the Australian government is trying to currently wrestle with how they keep this thing going whilst also managing the health aspects. There's a bunch more stuff that continues to talk about and how household debt is on the rise and what that looks like. I'll post up some of these links after today's webinar. So if I come back here and I go into, where do I go here next?
Do you want to stop sharing?
Stop sharing. How do I do that?
Just underneath there, that red.
Stop sharing.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I'm back. Have I managed to get back, folks? Am I here? Yep. I think I'm back. Can everyone see me? Is that fine? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys. All right. You bear with me. I'm trying to work those things out. All right. So, in terms of where we go from there, folks, what I'm actually going to quickly talk about now is I'm going to talk about break even. And I'm going to talk about break even because for me, break even dovetails into the grants. I've seen a variety of circumstances in the last 2 weeks when planning with clients where they believe and they look at, okay, I'm not entirely sure how much I need to keep the doors open at the moment and what I need to be looking at. we've been running seminars and educational programs with our clients for some time now, by some time, 3 or 4 years, around this very principle, which is how many widgets or how many things do we need to sell in a day, a week, a month, a quarter to be able to keep the doors open? And equally, how many widgets or things do we need to sell in a day, a week, a month, a quarter for us to make a profit of X? More often than not, it's surprising to see clients won't necessarily rely on their MYOB, their Xero, their QuickBooks, any of their financial data, because they'll say, yeah, I don't really trust that data, it's not right. And it's not right because the way it displays, I don't understand. I work it out on the back of a piece of paper. I've seen clients with 8-figure turnovers in business say that and say, look, I don't understand accounting. This is how I work it out. At the end of the day, those two should marry. And if you're not taking steps to make sure that that marries, you're not making accurate decisions in relation to that. I might be going over some 101 for a few people, but this is an opportunity for everyone to look at everything across the board. So I think these next steps, let's all make sure that we look at. I need to tell you, provided your financial information is input correctly, numbers don't lie. This is the biggest thing about numbers. Provided the information is in there correctly, they don't lie because it reconciles to a bank account. Really, really important for everyone to remember this. People might be looking in their CRM or they might be looking in their platform that run their business. They could be looking in a variety of other areas, their workflow scheduling system. How are they reconciling that back to their MYOB, Xero, or QuickBooks file? Garbage in equals garbage out. And sometimes it can be the case that people will say, I don't rely on that data, and they shouldn't, because what's going in is not right. So as a result, at the moment, we've got a couple of choices. One is to look at how the info is going in so we can get accurate information. We'll talk about that. Two is the information organized in an easy way for me to understand so that I can move forward and make accurate decisions? Three is, what does my financial information look like on the basis that a series of obligations that currently exist in my business, I might not have to pay? That's a really big one I've found with clients. I had a client, and I'll put this in the email, who thought it was the case that they're going to be bleeding $20,000 a month for the next 5 months from a cash burn perspective. However, when we actually sat down and went through those things and we reformulated what a P&L looks like for them, and we factored into account some of the grants we'll talk about at a local, state and federal level, their cash burn rate went from losing $20,000 a month to saving 10. Huge difference at the moment. Cash is king. And do we make decisions being worried about what's happening in 6 months' time? In my opinion, we can't, because on a daily, if not weekly basis, this is all changing. And so from my perspective as a business owner, yes, you want to have some sort of indication of what's happening in a month's time or 3 months' time. We need to get by each week at the moment, and we need to ring fence that as much as possible so that A, we can get through, but B, we can come out the other side and we can get going. There's a bunch of clients who are conserving their war chests at the moment, or business owners that are doing that, because if they get out the other side, then they can start again. One of the biggest challenges for a lot of people will be, if I run through all my cash now, how the bloody hell do I start down the track? Very, very valid comments. Let's not forget we're Australians. We find ways to get things done. And let's also not forget our government is continuing to introduce stimulus that will help us get through this. In my opinion, there's a third round of stimulus either coming tonight or Tuesday night, which is going to be even more significant. Trump signed a check for $3 trillion the other day. Where does all that go? So let's think about that. All right, so in terms of working out our break even, I've got a couple of different scenarios. I now need to work out how to share these screens. If I'm going to come to this one, and I'm going to share it. All right, folks, I've given us 5 different scenarios here. I've given us the good and the bad of a sole trader, and I've given us the good and the bad of a growing business. And you'll see this last one, which is called, is it all just BS? There's 2, in my opinion, 2 important styles of reports we need to be looking at the moment. That's our monthly P&Ls, and what are they saying or what are they not saying? And then there's this old chestnut over here, these monthly balance sheet comparisons. From my experience, there's quite a few people who will look at these things and they'll be saying, oh, some of this shit doesn't make sense. It's all crap for me. I've never really understood what's happening in this area, for example, so I'm going to ignore it. Now more than ever, folks, it's this information that can make decisions on how long our business can go based on its current position. All right, so let's talk about some simple stats. This is a great exercise for everyone to do. Everyone's business needs to establish two types of things. How do I share a second screen, Beck? I don't know if I can here. If I share multi-screens, I want to be able to share that one. No, we can't do that. All right. Stop share, share screen, advanced. No, basic. I wonder if I can do that one and that one. No, only does one. Okay. All right. We'll have to bear with us, folks. So our first important thing that we need to be doing here, guys, is pulling up a monthly P&L. Really important for you to pull up the last 8 months and see what's happening. More often than not, a lot of people don't realise all these over on the left-hand side, they can actually be changed to whatever it is that you need them to be changed to so that it can make a bit more sense. That's point one. Point two, businesses generally have two types of costs. They have fixed costs or operating costs, and we have variable costs. Variable costs are widgets, right? So if you make a product, this is the specific materials that you need to make your product. Now, generally that'll involve two things. It'll involve labor and it'll also involve raw materials in some way, shape or form. I so often in clients' accounts see no delineation between fixed and variable costs. It is critically important if you are trying to work out at the moment what is the amount of money on a daily basis I need coming in the door to stay afloat. You need to separate between what are my hard costs and what are my variable costs. That's very, very easy to do. If it's not currently in your accounts, or if there's any further queries on any of this stuff, folks, I will be running a specific webinar on this from Tuesday onwards. We haven't confirmed the date yet, but if you are interested, hit us in the chat and let us know that you would like to be invited into that webinar where we will specifically break these things down. I'll keep moving today so that everyone's got info on it. So make sure you pull up your monthly P&L for the last 8 months, separate out your income, your variable costs and your fixed costs. Make sure you separate those out. Second point, make sure everything's in the right bucket. I see so often it's the case that clients will code, or bookkeepers or financial controllers might code things in 1 month to this account, and then the following month it might land in another account. So if we have a look here, this could be a scenario for us. In this data set we've got here, all of a sudden we've got some entertainment. Not really sure what that entertainment is, but there was no entertainment in August, none in December, and none in January. We're all creatures of habit. I dare say it's actually the case that there probably is entertainment. It's just allocated somewhere else in our accounts. The most important thing with any of your accounting processes when looking at your costs is to make sure you call it the same thing every time. When you pull up year-on-year results, it's amazing how often if there's been a changeover with a bookkeeper or financial controller or an internal management system, nothing lines up to the previous years because you've decided to call it something different. That makes it really hard at this point in time to establish where that is. Here's another one in these accounts, cleaning. I've got 4 lots here and I've got none here. I highly doubt that they would not have a cleaner anymore. It's the case that where's that information gone? So this is an opportunity for us to look at all of those costs and map them out. I started this webinar by talking about the fact that us as Aussies need to look at having a go and ripping in here. Every time we look at a break even, one of the costs of looking at a break even with a client is to say, can we trim 10% from our fixed costs? Every year. We do this in our own business. July, I sit down and have a look at, okay, what did we do last year? Can we find a way to save more money? That could be done in a variety of ways. using things less often, being more efficient, shopping around, making sure that we're utilising services, software and subscriptions. That's amazing. How many times do you see little subscriptions out there for a bunch of things at the moment? Look at all of those. So you want to look at that. I think where we are right now, we've got extra things to consider, and we need to find 30 or 40% on our fixed costs. And that can be looking at things that currently we do need, but do we really need them? So I'll talk about those a little bit further on, but they can be things like what's happening with our rent, what's happening with our bank payments, what's happening with our insurance, what's happening with our rates, what's happening with our land tax. These are all things at the moment that we can look at. So there's a set of accounts that, whilst the fixed costs might not necessarily be allocated in the right areas, we're able to see, if we actually look at the bottom number, I found this one's always interesting. On a monthly basis, we're always in and around, if we have a look at these accounts, probably $17,000, $18,000 a month. Some months are a little bit higher than others. Always be aware of the 5-week pay month instead of 4. That has the ability to trip us up. I dare say that month for this one, December would have been a 5-week pay period, and then if we go back to a 4-week. So that's important to look at moving forwards. But numbers are all about patterns. That's why accountants get excited by these types of things, because we can start to see patterns. The best thing about using live software like Xero is that if none of this currently makes sense, we can actually reorganize that information. Xero has some abilities to do that. If you're not sure, contact our team. We've got 6 people in our office who are specialists in the area of information management and high-level bookkeeping. Big difference between data entry and high-level bookkeeping. We also have an in-house CFO in our office who's solely designed to be able to help clients from a management accounting perspective. None of this stuff is tax-based. That's the important thing everyone's learning here. Profit is profit, and that's the number that we pay tax on. In terms of how that calculation works, well, that's a whole separate equation relative to, is my information organised correctly so I can make better decisions? Now let's look at these same accounts, and I'm going to call them crap accounts. So as we can see over here, total sales are total sales. Total profit is total gross profit is total gross profit. So this is all the variable costs associated with this business in terms of products that they need to buy so that they could make sales. 446 is 446. 232, which is our total spend per month, is 232. 214 is our gross profit. 214 is our gross profit. However, in these accounts, we have correctly allocated income and expenses to the right month. This is really important, folks. This is called the matching principle. I've actually got some funny photo that I've got here that I can't share the screen with you about, which is effectively a set of twins looking at each other. It's really important that we match our income and our expenses in the same month. Otherwise, we get variations in our accounts that don't give us an accurate reflection of things. Here's an example. So, in this month here, as we can see, every month it looks like we're making a profit. Profit, 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 profit. Our total profit year to date is the same, 214 and 446, $73,000 all up. If I come over into these accounts, I've made a profit in this month, I've made a loss in this month, I've made a massive profit in this month, I've made a loss in this month, massive profit relative to income, ordinary, another loss, and then more profit. Overall, my position's the same, but what's actually happening on a monthly basis? And right now, we need to know what's happening on a monthly basis, if not a weekly basis. It needs to be broken down. In my office, as of Monday, we will be sharing daily stats on what our business needs to make sure we can pull through on this. All of these things can be broken down. What I want to highlight here is the reason that this is out is in this scenario here, we're not actually accounting for these expenses when they're physically being paid versus when they're being entered into the accounts. So it could have been the case in this scenario that the client's gone and ordered a whole heap of product. In this instance, it could have been from overseas. I'll leave all the overseas jokes alone for the moment. So the cost has been incurred here. So it looks as though there's a massive loss. But then it's turned up in the following month, and now I've got this whopping great profit because I don't actually have any costs in this month because I paid for it in this month, but I sold it in this month. That is a unique area which talks about work in progress. It talks about inventory. It talks about raw materials. It talks about the specific costs associated with sales. There is a specific way to handle that in your accounts when utilizing both the profit and loss and the balance sheet and what we call cash accounting versus accruals accounting. These are really, really important concepts to grasp. And you need to, today, go and look at all of your accounts and see where that's at. It can highly exacerbate the peaks and the flows. It's amazing how much you can also see that in your fixed costs. Insurance is an example. You might see an insurance payment in 1 month here, but it's actually the case that it's spread out over 12 months. What does that look like? Same accounts, same profit, crap months. They're not actually crap months. It's timing of when it's coming in and out. So you need to get clear on that. We're here to help you with that, and we'll be running a webinar, and then we'll actually be having all of our accountants and our data analytics / information management / bookkeeping team on call to be able to actually step you through specific programs we can run to get that organized easily and efficiently. Now let's look at a slightly bigger business. Slightly bigger business, here we go. We've got a situation here where we've got income happening every month. Is it the case that maybe we've got different styles of income that are happening or not? As you can see in this business, it's the case, or in this example, that we are relatively, and I'm going to compare this to the next round of accounts, where same total income, same total expenses, 1765, 1765. But have a look at these fluctuations that go on, folks. Now, it's actually not the case that we lost $162,000 in this month, but maybe a bunch of materials were ordered here, and in the following 2 months, it was the case that they were sold with much less in the way of fixed costs, variable costs, sorry. So these numbers can get out of whack pretty quickly if we're not keeping track of the matching principle. Where does that go? We've then got a situation here, and this can highlight it as well, folks. We start looking at the P&L, and we suddenly wonder, okay, heat, lighting, power, yes, they get paid in certain months, but where are those liabilities on a monthly basis? We need to organise all of this information much better. The next thing that I want to talk to you about in relation to that is actually, where have I got here? Is actually the fact that when we look at what our revised modelling is, and what all of this means, if we pull up a current P&L for ourselves, and we're in a situation, I'll come down here, we're in a situation where we're saying, well, maybe my business is only just breaking even. The key thing that we need to consider is there are a chunk of things that potentially from a cash perspective can help us get through these times. I'm going to share with you a separate screen here, which is actually going to go over what those things are. Here we go. Share. All right, so that's sharing that screen now. Can someone just hit me on the chat to say that they've got, and they can view a Word document that's got number 12 happening on that? Come down, right, thank you. But how does this happen? How does what happen, Sky? If you can let us know what happened in particular. Yes, guys, we can see it. Can we see that? All right, folks. So here's the initial list of things you need to be looking at in conjunction with your break-even analysis for, is it going to help my cash flow? Currently, we've got a situation where the ATO is going to be deferring for a minimum of 4, I can't remember if it's 4 months or 5 months, all payments being made to the ATO. I personally believe that may extend, 4 Beck's telling me. I personally think that may extend to 12 months. It may go beyond that, and we may be able to negotiate harder. My view is at the moment, hitting the pause button with the ATO and anyone else that you can on this list until you establish where your break even is at. That's the purpose of this. In my opinion, there's no point in making a decision on hitting the eject button until you've worked through every scenario. Because if we're able to push out a series of things to get us down the road, we can then make a decision at that point as to what this looks like. Hitting the eject button now is not necessarily the thing we need to do. We need to look at how can we zig, how can we zag, what can we defer so that as the dust settles in 2 weeks, a month, 3 months, God knows when that is at this point in time, once the dust settles, we can then make a decision, an informed decision on what we're going to do. Everyone's running around trying to jump on things at the drop of a hat. I understand that. It makes sense. Cash is urgent. I'll also say the vast majority of this stuff you can't even get access to yet. And I'll talk about that shortly. But let's make sure we understand our break even through those concepts I've spoken about before. If you need to know more, we'll have our webinar after Tuesday and we'll be providing details on that. And our internal team will be able to help you with it. In addition to that, we need to look at deferring these things so that we can make a better decision. So that includes all ATO balances. If you have a tax bill from last year, we can hit the pause button on that. If you have a current BAS bill, you can hit the pause button on that, including upcoming BAS. If you have FBT or Superannuation Guarantee bills, you can also look at hitting the pause button on those things. We still need to communicate with the ATO. That's really important, and we need to say the right message without selling the services of making sure you speak to the right people. There's a good old saying by Redraw. If you think it's expensive to hire a professional, wait until you have to fire an amateur. It's a really, really important one. We don't want to make decisions right now which could pivot if only we knew a couple of extra things. So all of those things we can hit the pause button for and take a giant big breath on. Our upcoming BASs, we have the same situation. There is potentially, as it currently stands, and it may extend, $100,000 worth of PAYG relief coming everyone's way to help us pay wages. So if you're looking at your weekly P&L or that monthly P&L that was in those previous spreadsheets, that number in wages currently includes the wages tax obligation. If you no longer have to pay wages tax for your team, will that change your ability to keep the team on in some way, shape or form? Because for those higher income earners, that's potentially 30 to 40% of the wage bill you no longer have to pay. Superannuation Guarantee, I'll talk about that now. Superannuation Guarantee for the March quarter is due 28 April. There are limited circumstances where that's required to be paid on a monthly basis, so I won't talk about those right now. But on a quarterly basis, the quarterly statutory obligations are due 28 April. I'm going out on a limb here, and I'm going to say my bet is that superannuation will either be paid by the government for us employers, will not be paid or not required to be paid, or will be deferred. I think it's the case that the Australian government will ultimately say everyone needs to take a haircut in relation to this, and we need to get people to the other side. I could very well be wrong, but my prediction is that that payment that's due on the 28th of April may have some variance in it. As a result of that, what I have said to people for any of these payments that you're looking at deferring, because everyone says, shit, I don't want to defer any payments because what happens then if I get down the track and I fucking lose sight of everything that's going on? That's real easy. Go and open up a specific bank account and call it COVID-19. Right? Call it something else. Call it rainy day fund. Call it whatever it is that we want to go and do. But go and hit a specific bank account, and as a result, thanks, Guy. Yes, Lizette, for the moment, those statutory quarterly obligations aren't due until 28 April. If it's the case that you have outstanding statutory obligations, we'll talk about them at the end. But let's set up, I'll keep going for that at the moment. Let's set up our specific COVID-19 bank account. That's what we're doing internally here. Any payments that I'm looking at deferring, I'm still making them so I can keep track of things, and I'm sticking them in a separate account. If you don't have that ability, write it down. pretty sure everyone's got a pen and paper. Write them down and start keep track of them. So we can defer the ATO. We can defer our upcoming BAS payments for GST, wages tax, FBT, provisional tax. That's a fucking big one. Anyone that's paid provisional tax during the year, that is tax in advance, now is the opportunity in our March activity statements to get all of that back. The ATO have a rule that say if we ask you to pay provisional tax every quarter and you say no, and we get to the end of the year and you have a tax bill, they have the ability to send you a fine because they know that if you don't pay it as you go, there's a good chance it won't be there at the end. The ATO have relaxed those provisions. So it could be the case that we can get all of the provisional tax that we've paid in the current year refunded back to us right now so that we've got more cash. We've got more cash so we can spread it out for longer. If we've got a tax bill down the track, we'll deal with it then when the dust settles. In addition to that, if you're a director of your business and you pull wages out of your business, you need to be looking at whether or not you can do a wage variation and potentially amend any wages that you've paid during the year and look at reclassifying them. That's a bit of a tricky subject because we've got this thing called single touch payroll at play. However, it's the case that it's a real thing. If you've pulled wages out during the year as a director and paid tax on it, you need to talk to your bookkeeper. Most importantly, you need to talk to your accountant. Talk to us about how we may look to vary that to free your cash up. Also consider how you're communicating with your team, what you're doing from a cash flow perspective. After seeing what Alan Joyce did in terms of being in charge of his business, Alan Joyce said he's not taking any more money out of or getting paid at Qantas for the rest of the year. I've done the same thing in my business. I did it a month ago. How do leaders stand up? So let's look at getting all that tax back. So that's superannuation. Recouping state-based payroll tax. If you pay payroll tax at a state level, we've got the ability to recoup that. Queensland government, my opinion, hasn't done enough. There's talk of bringing that all the way back to July and us getting that recouped all the way. Victoria has generally helped out. New South Wales is on the way. WA is to come. Rates freezes. So Gold Coast City Council, as an example, have put freezes on rates. This is what I call low-hanging fruit, this stuff, guys. People are saying to me, oh, no, but I've got the ability to pay it, so I'll pay it at the moment. If you do, don't fucking pay it. If you don't have to pay these types of things at the moment, don't do it. Stick it in that COVID-19 doomsday prepping account, hold on to it, and then make the decision. If you get 2 months down the track and you go, oh, shit, actually, things are all right, I can pay for all these things, pay for them then. If you get 2 months down the track and shit genuinely starts turning to clay, you're not going to be able to go back at that point and say, hey, can I have all this money back that I've given you in a couple of months' time? Take advantage of it. It's low-hanging fruit. It's easy to do. If you're not sure, contact us. Look on the various government websites. We will be sending out a specific checklist this coming week around all of these things in more details. Hold on to your rates. Don't pay. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Make sure that happens. Land tax, I reckon that's also going to be put on hold. It's not due till 30 June, but if you're a land taxpayer at a state level, I would be budgeting on being able to hold on to that money. Electricity discounts, utility providers, ring them. I can't pay at the moment. We've got COVID-19 underway. Some of these amounts might seem like small amounts. Anyone who's done a home renovation will openly say that as much as they're small amounts, it ends up being a fucking large amount. So $500 here, 1,000 there, 1,800 there, 10 here, 5 there. All of a sudden, you might have saved yourself that extra $50,000 to $100,000 to be able to get yourself going. It could be $500,000 to $1 million that you've saved. It could be tens of millions. These principles apply at all three levels of business. So let's stick to it. Accessing superannuation early. It looks as though the government's going to give the ability for us to obtain money prior to 30 June and after 30 June in certain circumstances. There's 10 grand either side of the deck. There's more information coming out in relation to that and what the specific qualification criteria are. Next one. So this is where we'll talk about how awesome MWM is. 2019 and 2020 dividend imputation refund strategies and the loss carryback provisions. Spoke to a client during the week. I let them know that because they're trading in the current year and they've had a shit year, but we paid a bunch of tax in previous years, come 30 June, we may very well be able to receive hundreds of thousands of dollars in income tax refunds at a company level simply because we've structured them correctly and we're able to now optimize and use those previous tax benefits that exist. So if you're doing a cash flow or a break even at the moment and you're going, fuck, I'm only going to get through the next 4 to 8 weeks, you need to be talking to your accountants about what's my strategy post 30 June. If I can hold on and I can defer some of this shit until I get after the 30 June, what's on the other side of the hill and what other stimulus is coming up? Let's make sure of that. There are post 30 June strategies that we can already be talking about now and potentially implementing. If you have a trading company that has imputation credits in it, that's that weird thing that says franking credits at the end. If you have that, we need to be looking at those things. Talk to your accountants about that. Navigating the landlord. There's a bunch of material out there at the moment that's saying we have the ability to look at negotiations. That's on a couple of fronts. I've had clients contact me about rental properties at the moment. It's a tough one with insurance and getting compensated for it. We also have tenants that are in that situation. And unfortunately, we also have clients that are landlords themselves. From my view, I'm going to stand on my high horse a little bit here. For those of us that have got bank loans floating around, as landlords, we want to work together with Australians here is my view. What is Australia all about? There's been a couple of landlords say to me, well, this shouldn't be my problem. I'm not the bank. This is no one's problem. In fact, it's fucking everyone's problem. I know that sucks and that might be hard news to hear, but we're all in this together. There's tenants that have done the wrong thing. I completely understand those statements. But if you've had tenants in your property for 1, 3, 5, 10 years and they've been sticking by you, maybe this is an opportunity for some of us a little bit more fortunate to work out how we're going to navigate through that and come out the other side. I don't enjoy not getting any rent either, but Australia is also about giving everyone a fair go within reason and doing the right thing. As a tenant, how are you communicating with your landlord? I've seen some shocking letters during the week, in my opinion, around requests from clients to their landlords about this. This is a big one for me, guys, and those that personally know me know this. There's a couple of words that my old man and my mum, love her to death, used to drum into me as a kid. Please and thank you. I'm going to give you a bit of a rant here, but they're not fucking hard to say. Please and thank you. Everyone's stressed. So be different if you're communicating with your landlord. Please and thank you. All right. If you're in conversations with your landlord, there's a good chance they're already thinking about these things. Why don't you start by going to the landlord and wanting to understand their position? Mr. Landlord, Mrs. Landlord, obviously this COVID-19 thing is affecting my business. As a result, as a landlord, what are you thinking and what does that look like for you? This to me is a time for the, what's the word? The, not the good news test, but this is the time for making sure you provide a balanced equation. If you're on the landlord side and you've got issues with your bank because you've got loans, absolutely. Let's go and communicate with the landlord, with the bank and say, can't afford these loans because I'm not getting paid. Can't afford my rates because I'm not getting paid. Can't afford land tax because I'm not getting paid. Can't afford insurance because I'm not getting paid. And all of a sudden we've got a change in the pattern of what our holding costs are. You want to be able to help those businesses get through if you can. Yep, Veronica, we'll talk about that one. So that's a really important thing to remember. If you're a tenant, work with the landlord. Get on the front foot with communication. Don't stick your head in the fucking sand. The ostrich principle, folks, doesn't work at times like these. Everyone's stressed. A little bit of please and a little bit of thank you is the case. Tenants, you're going to like hearing this next statement more than landlords are going to hear it. The insolvent trading provisions and the statutory demand provisions have been significantly relaxed this week. I think there's probably going to be more news to come there. Those provisions effectively say it's just about impossible for a landlord to sue someone, and it's just about impossible for a landlord to kick someone out. It's just about impossible for a supplier to sue someone and collect that money as it currently stands. As a result, jumping up and down, I'm not sure is always going to be the right way. Absolutely, it could be the case where it's deserved from time to time, and you could have had problematic issues over a longer period historically, and this is just exacerbating the issue. I get that and I understand it. However, we need to find a way to work together. As a result, going to the landlord and being able to communicate with them, explain your position, and go from there. This is also not a set and forget strategy, folks. It could be the case that in a month's time, the world changes. People are making decisions about, oh, I need 6 months rent off. Okay, well, the banks are giving us 6 months in a lot of instances. Maybe it's 3 months in check-in. What does that look like? So as a result, we want to have manners when talking with our landlord. Please and thank you. We can have manners when talking with our financial controller, our bookkeeper, and our accountants as well. All right, what else have we got? Deferral of loans. This is one that's stressing me out. And here's why it's stressing me out. Here's the stat. I'm going to get my phone. This was on the news today. I was in the newspapers. I didn't read today's newspapers because I'm fucking over the negative news. All right. No, I don't keep referring to you, whoever that person is that's text me. Where's the stat? Here we go. So the stat, folks, is this. All right. 100,000 cash-strapped borrowers have rushed to stop home loan payments this week. Westpac has had more than 44,000 mortgage customers, 17,000 business customers. CBA's had 27,000, NAB 25, and ANZ 20. Oh, I've read that round the wrong way. All right. Guys, to me, this is a fucking given. It's low-hanging fruit. I cannot see how any financial institution is going to tarnish anyone's credit rating for you saying, at the moment, COVID-19 is affecting my business and the uncertainty of that. And as a result, I need to defer all my payments. All right? If you're worried about it and you're going, shit, what happens at the end? It looks as though the vast majority of the times the banks are simply going to tack it on at the end, charge you the same interest rate, and amortize it over the life of the loan. It'll be all at the end in relative terms. If you're still worried about it and you think you've got enough cash to pay the loans, don't talk about litigating. Yeah, we should still look at that, DMAC. I absolutely agree, but it involves conversation. So if you're worried about that with the bank, guys, just do this. Tell the bank, I want deferral. They will give you the deferral. It's not going to be a blip on your credit rating. Take the money that you know that you can pay the bank, stick it in another account. Stick it in that COVID-19 fucking doomsday account. Sorry for the swearing, but today's a bit of a rant because I want you guys to know we've got to do these things. I'll probably get in trouble for it too. Sorry, but I'm being Australian. Stick it in another account. Keep onto the money. As it currently stands, your business might be traveling really well, but all of those monthly hire purchase payments, those lease payments, any of those term loan payments, any of those residential rental property payments, if you actually went 6 months of not paying those, add that number up. If it's the case that you get the end and you need money to start again, and all of a sudden you've got an extra 50 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand to start again, $2 million to start again, isn't that worth it? Communicate with your banks. I cannot see how anyone's going to want to bash anyone's credit rating for that. If you're not certain, communicate with your bank manager. Again, please and thank you. Mr. Bank Manager, Mrs. Bank Manager. Communicate with your accountant or communicate with your broker. I've been talking to a couple of brokers who've done a great job. Jason Andrews and Renee Finlay, big shout out to both of you. Thanks for giving me a bunch of information here, which some of it I've already shared. But the theme is the same. Communicate with the bank, get the extension, talk to your broker. What are my options? My personal view, I saw a bit of a shocker during the week where I had a client, had a broker try to convince them to negotiate a really cheap interest rate and fix it in for the next 5 years because rates were currently low. I think at the moment, folks, we need to be looking at deferring those types of things. Volkswagen Financial said no to us. I think that's a changing space. I think that's really, really important, folks. What happened on Monday and what happened on Friday are two different things. If you haven't had any luck communicating that to your financier, my next question is, did you talk to your accountant? Because are you making an informed decision? Did you talk to your lawyer? Did you talk to your mentor? Have you spoken to people that have expert knowledge in those areas to be able to help demonstrate what you need to do? That's really important. Simply don't accept no. Those that have worked with me know and drives the team up the wall a little bit here. If I'd had $1 for every time I've been told no and I've managed to prove everyone the other way around. That's part of what we do here. Okay, no, but we will. There you go. There's the answer. Don't give up hopes. If it hasn't worked, ring someone. Ring us. We're here to help. So let's have that. Let's get on the front foot. Let's get it done. Offsets. This is an interesting one. I've heard a bit about this space. The view is, and I'm not providing any financial or legal advice here. I'm waving all my arms. There is zero financial advice, zero legal advice. There seems to be an option here if you have redraw facilities at the moment. Maybe consider utilising those redraw facilities so that you have surplus cash. We don't know what that looks like down the track. Yes, you'll pay a bit more interest for the month, but is that worth it for certainty? If you're still paying a high interest rate in the first place, you should be getting a better broker. Jason Andrews, Renee Finlay, there's a plug for both of you. Contact me for their details if you like. And you should be negotiating a better rate in relation to those things. Let's look at, okay, could that money potentially come out? Automatically deferring loans. The 250K bank loan guarantee, bank deposit guarantee. A bunch of people I've spoken to this week weren't aware that the government, as it currently stands, provides a guarantee on term deposits. So if you have $1 million sitting in a bank account and the whole world turned to shit, as it stands, the government would cover $250,000 of that million if it was the case that the bank had to run on liquidity. Excuse me, that doesn't apply to all account holders. It applies to specific types of account holders. Get online and Google it. Look at the government website for it. We'll post you the link. Again, if you're not certain, please and thank you to your banker. Please and thank you to your accountant and understand what that is. I put a strategy in play this week for a series of clients where we've taken larger term deposits and we've split them up across a series of banks into a series of different account holder names. Now, if we live in this really weird world where we have a run on absolutely everything, maybe the government changes that. Again, I'm not providing financial or legal advice. However, for the moment it stands. So let's communicate and look at where you've got that cash sitting and look at spreading that out. All of a sudden, then we've got some suppliers. What are you looking at with your team around what those stand down provisions are, or consent in relation to potentially having less and less hours worked each week so that we can get out the other side? We are all in this together. So if you all of a sudden look at those things in particular, folks, and also negotiating with your suppliers, what does the world look like? Does that weekly or monthly amount, does it then become the same? Does that change the flexibility on, I thought I needed 200 grand a month to get by. If I remove all of those things, I might be able to get by with 30 or 40. That's what right now is for. And the reason that that's what right now is for is beyond that, at a state and federal government, we are now seeing relief from them, which is continuing to come out, which will help us there. Let's talk about now what that relief is, or is it? At local, state and federal levels. What have we got there? We've got to thoroughly work through those stimulus packages. We will be sending something out post-Tuesday on all of them. I'll make some specific comments on the Queensland government stimulus that was announced on Thursday. Some brief stats, folks. There was $500 million that was deployed as of Thursday that people could apply for with the Queensland government to help get their business through at a really cheap rate. There were some series of terms and conditions on that. I had probably a dozen clients ring me on Thursday, say, I need to get all my financials completed today so that I can have that sent off to the government and get the $250,000. And if I don't do that, I'm not going to get the grant. By my calculations, there's only 2,000 businesses at 250,000, which will ultimately then get access to that 500 million, and there'll be none left. Here is a question for all of you. How many small to medium businesses do you think that grant applies to in Queensland? Here's a stat. 438,000 small and medium businesses are in Queensland. I cannot see the political backlash occurring I can see massive political backlash occurring if the first 2,000 applicants get $250,000 each and everyone else doesn't get a cent. It doesn't make sense. Yes, absolutely, we need to get that information in. You also need to make sure you're getting the right information in. If you give information to one government agency and then you change it at a federal level, what's coming up with your activity statements, i.e. your March quarter activity statements, or if you haven't finalised your 2019 accounts, what potential risks do you or don't you run? It starts with a 15 to 30 minute conversation with ensuring you're applying for all of those things in the right way so that you can maximise the benefits and outcomes that come with it. That's really, really important to know. Stay tuned to our socials this week for how those things come out. I need to remind everyone, the vast majority of these things that are coming out, you can't get access to straight away. You've got to follow procedure and process for it. And the government agencies are trying to bolt it together. So what you need to be doing is working out what your break even is, giving yourself variables on what happens if I change paying people or not. What happens if I potentially go to my team and say we all have to take a haircut? What does that look like? What does that look like if my superannuation is deferred and my wages tax is deferred? What does that look like if I get a cash injection through this next round of stimulus? There is talk in this next round of stimulus that the federal government may turn around and commence paying the wage bill for employers Australia-wide with a base amount. If you're about to punt your employees or you're about to say to them, hey, look, this can't happen anymore, my personal view, and this is not formal advice, so I'm waving all the flags, my personal view is we need to wait for that stimulus. 1 or 2 days isn't going to hurt us in the grand scheme of things. I think that next round of stimulus may have something in there for employers. The UK have done that. This is where I'm pointing to for that. The UK have commenced paying all of the employees in the UK so that businesses can shut down and hibernate for a while. There were comments from the Morrison government on Friday that that's exactly what they're looking at doing. And they're looking at getting everyone signing off on that at a federal and state level and how they can disperse the money. If that's the case, a lot of this stuff starts to change. So that's what I think we need to be doing with our local, state and federal grants. After Tuesday, we will be sending out a link and putting a post up in relation to that in our 101 guide. Why haven't we done it today? We haven't done it today because more than half of all those stimulus packages aren't finalised and are big, broad brush concepts. Your consideration for cash flow burn needs to include all of these things that are up here. You need to make sure of that. All right, next point. Everyone can see the camera, can't they, at the same time? I feel like they can. Yeah, cool. All right. So next point, folks, what we already need to start thinking about post 30 June, further increase our cash position. They are the strategies around imputation credits, loss carryback provisions. I reckon the federal government might come up with more. They'll come up with more to be able to help businesses get through. Navigating options with suppliers. I've spoken about what those things are. Creditor payments, ATO, it may stop the cash burn to get us through. Is the eject button right for me? In light of number 15, this could be a situation where, as concerned as people are, we may be able to negotiate our way out of that with these new provisions that are going on because of the knock-on consequence. This is all uncharted territory. Before you hit the eject button, have a chat with some experts. Talk to your accountant, talk to people that you trust, form an informed view of all of these things and what your break even looks like before we go any further. I'm going to share a different screen because here's another example for me. Beck, how do I do that? Yep. Do I do this? So stop share. Okay, and then I'm going to share another screen with us, folks. All right, so share screen. That screen share. All right, has everyone got this account happening up here now? Can someone just hit me up and say, yes, we've got the balance sheet. It just says, is this all just BS? Yep, cool, it's working. All right, is this all just BS? BS is balance sheet, BS is bullshit. I can't tell you how many clients don't look at this thing, or how many times I've seen business owners go, oh yeah, I look at this balance sheet, but I don't fucking understand it, so I'm going to leave it alone. If this piece of information here does not reconcile for you, and by reconcile, if you don't understand what all of these things are, you are not making an informed decision on where your business is currently at. This is key, and we've been running these seminars and programs with so many of our clients for a long period of time now around understanding your asset and liability position. And what is that? Assets and liabilities can be clarified into so many things. A couple of quick tips. We look at our clients' bank accounts here. So we've got a situation where we know how much money we've got in the tin every month. That's important. Go and set yourself up a COVID-19 doomsday account. I've said that. That can be an account, if you are provisioning and you are in front, you can tip money into. This is a big one. Accounts receivable. How much money are you owed in your business at the moment? Are you looking at that number on a monthly basis and making sure all steps are happening? Something happened for the client in this situation where it was the case that there'd been some incorrect data that had been entered, and as a result of the incorrect data being entered, we see these negative numbers. That's going to mean our financial information isn't correct and we might not know where it's at. Here's the other thing. If I'm looking at the total assets of my business at the moment, do I have raw materials? Do I have jobs I haven't finished that I'm yet to complete? What is my snapshot of what my business looks like? You may be prepared, or you may be required to give banks this information at some point in time to be able to get us going, or any of the grant application process. So all of this needs to be tidy. If you don't know what it is, or there are questions or queries around it, you need to talk to us. You need to talk to your accountants. You need to talk to your bookkeeper about getting clear on those things. So many of our clients would be sick of me harping about all these things, but now is why it's critically important. Understanding what our hardcore assets are. You see often we've got plant and equipment and general pool on our client's balance sheet. But what's the real value as of today? Are there things that we can sell? I had a client who's got a series of gyms who last week, to make themselves liquid, they offloaded 4 of their gym's equipment at prices well above what they originally paid for it because people were buying gear at home at the moment. That's now allowed that client to convert their products into cash. They've now got cash. They can tighten up on the payments to everyone. They can get access to state and federal funding, and they'll be able to push through. So what does that look like? Because we might have to make some changes in that space. Here's the big one, guys. If I had $1 for every new client I've seen since they've moved to our practice, this one, director's loan account. I heard a story last week where someone had realised, or a new client had realised, that they had this massive big tax bill. You know why they had this massive big tax bill? Because their bookkeeper at the time, or their accounting practice at the time, doesn't happen here at MWM, had simply allocated everything that they weren't sure of to this director's loan. The client was in a situation where they had paid out business expenses out of the account, but because someone wasn't sure of it, they had simply booked it into this account, which had meant the business hadn't claimed it as a tax deduction, which means profits were higher, income tax was paid that shouldn't have, and they may have paid tax on this as wages and not claimed GST on it. If you have a director's loan account in your financial statements, you need to be looking at it right now. There could be some hidden gems in there. I've highlighted this because with this new client, what I picked up was it was the case that because they didn't have high enough transfer limits for the day to pay a third-party supplier, there was $300,000 that was taken out of the trading account across to a personal account, which that personal account did have those limits that could make the payment for the day. It was booked down in their accounts as $300,000 taken out personally. It was actually $300,000 worth of plant and equipment, which saw accelerated depreciation, which actually saw 30 grand in GST refunds that could potentially be coming into their business next month. Look at this account. If you're using payroll and third-party programs, you need to get clear on the position in your business for GST, income tax, PAYG, superannuation. If you have any of these weird, funky clearing accounts for some reason, you need to look at them. That's a garbage in, garbage out scenario that needs to be tidied up. There could be some hidden gems in that aspect of the business or these aspects of the accounts which may show hey, I've actually got the ability to claw some money back there, or it's potentially saying I've overpaid for stuff that I shouldn't have overpaid for. This whole area needs to make sense in your accounts. If it doesn't, the next 24 to 48 hours, you need to be focusing on this. Call our office, speak to your respective accountants. The vast majority of MWM clients have all of this sorted. And for those that don't, would have been sick of me harping on about it already. There are hidden gems here that may help us from a cash flow perspective. If you've got equipment, understand where those liabilities and obligations are at. If you have loans at the moment on any of your equipment, it might be worth calling your financial institution and finding out what the payout figure is. Maybe you can offload some of that. Do you need to keep it to run your business? Maybe you do, or maybe you don't need it. Remember, all of this stuff could be deferred. Let's look at the deferral strategies that come on. For those of you that aren't familiar with the dividend imputation strategy, if this number on your balance sheet, this total equity number, is positive, not negative, there's a good chance it applies to you. Make sure you check in with your accountant in relation to that if you're not an MWM client. I'll stop sharing that one. All right, I will then come back to, I'm getting the hang of this. This actually isn't that hard. Screen one. All right, so now I'm sharing that one. So that's what we need to be doing there. Again, looking at our break even, deferring our eject button. That's been really tough. The government co-contribution guarantee I've spoken about. All right, here's a big one, guys. That's where I'm at. Oh, shit, hang on. Sorry, oops. Okay, share, there we go. Thanks, Peg. Right, so that's where we're at from a cash flow perspective. Understand your break even. What happens if all of those things change at the moment based on what I've highlighted? We have the ability, and we're going to create sessions and a live webinar to help you through that post-Tuesday. And talk to your team, talk to your bookkeeper, get a clear understanding, your financial controller, your CFO. So now that we have an understanding of those things and pumping the brakes, get someone to check it. If you've looked at that information and you think it's right, does it pass the sniff test? It takes 15 minutes to send that information to MWM and have us check it. I will say that if it's 15 minutes, our team, I'm more than happy if you're listening to invest that time. If you're a current client or potentially are listening and simply want help, we will give you that time for free to get you through. Send us your information. We can have a look at it and we can tell you, does it pass the sniff test or not? Our templates will come out this week, which will help you with that post-Tuesday. Now, on to the next one. These are my two big points, and I then also need to look at what my email has said. So I'll get that one over here. There's been a lot of comments about leadership, which I've spoken about with Ken Blanchard. This is also an opportunity, if you get downtime, to look at these things. People are saying, what am I going to do? I've already put together my 12-month list. How many of us find, and I was talking to Joe Kloss this morning or yesterday about this, which is how many of us find you often say, fuck, I'm too busy, I can't get time to do that. I've heard that so many times over the years, and I'm guilty of it as well. Now is an opportunity to look at those things. I sat my team down last week and said, team, if there are concerns around how much work we will or won't have, this week, I want you to write out everything in the last 12 months that you've wanted to do to help make your role more efficient, more effective, provide more value, change what you're doing. Write it all down, because now's our time to potentially look at those things. If you've put team members off or you've had to lay them off, there's a good chance there's still buy-in and they want to see your business succeed. So let's start unpacking what that business looks like moving forward and come up with hit lists. Let's get discussion groups. Let's bind each other together. Let's start sharing information. Let's find ways of unpacking and repacking that. Because I guarantee you, we've all got stuff we could be doing, and we've all got the ability to reflect. I saw a little post during the week for someone who said, I thought I was going to be bored in my time off. I found all these online courses that are free that I can invest in. Don't watch Netflix. Don't watch bloody Stan. Don't go and get sidetracked with scrolling through news feeds all the time. Take this as an opportunity to invest in yourself. Here's what I've done in my business, and the part of the reason I wanted to share this here is, guys, at the start of the year, how do you do this? Here you go. At the start of the year, I looked at extra motivation for myself. That motivation was me putting pieces of paper, just pieces of paper. Does that screen work? Yeah, there we go. Just pieces of paper up. And every time a thought came into my head or something I thought was relevant, I write it up on the wall. I also have over on this corner here, I have the month calendar printed out. And at the top of that, I have 6 core objectives that I'm focusing on every month at the moment to make sure I'm a better person and to make sure I'm headed in the right direction. For me, those things are making sure I fill out my timesheets and my productivity calculations every day. Sorry, clients, you'll love that one. But that is an actual visual piece for me to make sure I do. Listening to podcasts and self-improvement. What am I doing every day, even if it's only 10 minutes to take those steps? Doing fitness. Those that know me know I love making sure I keep in shape. Fitness is such an important thing. Health and lifestyle, it really gives you great clarity of mind, helps with endorphins, kick in with all sorts of mental things. And so I've got a list of making sure I'm doing that. Gratitude. I've got a space for gratitude. I need to do one thing at the very least every day that I'm thankful for. All this noise of all this material shit we don't need to worry about. Well, this is a big one for me. I've also got one called look forward. Instead of thinking about solely today, what do I need to do today to make tomorrow a better day? That could be something as simple as getting a bit more organized. How do I change this thing back? There we go. I think. Yeah. There we go. Kinda. Here we go. How do we get more organized? Oh, it's on a bit of a. Anyway, there you go. You get the idea, folks. I think. Yep, there we go. So what can we do in that space? I then personally am in a situation where I'm making sure each day I'm thinking about something I can be more efficient and effective for tomorrow. Effective and, yeah, that way. So let's look at those things. Set up some visual things around the place to be able to help you get through. What are the things you need to do in the next week to get you through that? Let's add to those lists. Bring your team into it. If your team have been laid off or you've had to make changes, what steps can you take to help them through at the moment? I mentioned that at the start. Potentially part of that for the good team members is the situation where we can look at how we're going to rebuild things. This camera being on an angle is kind of annoying me a bit. Here we go. There you go. Yeah, good job, Beck. No, can it go up a little bit higher? There we go. Yeah, perfect. There we go. So that's down a bit. It's not that easy to do, folks. I need a production crew. So let's look at rebuilding those things, team. That's what we want to do from here. Let's look at that. Get our team involved. If you're not sure how to do that, get online. Look at things like teamwork. There is so much information out there available to us for us to look into that and establish, okay, how can I set up group chats? What can I use in relation to that to make things easier? For those of you, and start journaling on a daily basis. I think I'm sharing that screen. Where's our information? What's our passion? Start reflecting and journaling on things. If you've got spare time, what about online courses? What are your team doing? We've all said that we could do more things. The rear view mirror of reflection is now, and so is that jar of hindsight. So as a result, what are we doing about it? I'm going to stop sharing that screen. I'll bring that over here. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to scroll back through everything. Opportunities, options, post, negating restructure. That could be a thing. Eject button. I don't think so right now. Let's get through the next week and let's see where that's at. Or next couple of days. What to do about your team. We've spoken about that. Bank guarantee. What is rebuilding and leadership? Rear view mirror. At this point, folks, I'm going to start signing into the Q&A perspective. What I really want to, really want to stress, folks, is I don't know if everyone should be thinking about shutting the doors without making that informed decision. That informed decision encompasses all the things that we've spoken about today. and we'll be providing additional notes for over the next 2 days. Beck's going to write a bunch of notes out for us. What else do I want? Probably here too, I need to say a massive shout out to the team at MWM. We have pulled together in ways that it's just amazing. So thank you very much for all of them. They've been 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. days for a bunch of people. They've been hectic days for everyone because everyone's stressed, clients are stressed, third parties are stressed. Please and thank you through all of that and finding a bit of gratitude. Really, really important. But thanks very much to the team at MWM. So what we're going to do now, folks, is I'm actually going to scroll through the Q&A. Let's go. Japanese whiskey. We'll keep going. Is Hughes here? How does it happen? Sky. What are we talking about? Good versus crap. I've answered. Super payments. Yes, at the moment, statutory obligations are due 28 April. As an employee who uses employees in subbies, is it financially better for us to change to subcontractors through our employment payroll? Good question, Angela. So the ATO this week provided some initial guidance around sham PAYG lodgements being made. Really big thing in this area is that the government are going to closely monitor how and where and what goes on. There's more information due to come out over the coming days in relation to that. Let's think about that in two different ways. Yes, on the employee front, you'll be able to receive additional funding, which will make it easier to employ people. That's absolutely correct. Balancing that equation with potentially your subcontractors themselves are now eligible for things that employees aren't. So I think it's a case-by-case basis. I feel like I'm leaning still back. Can we? I just made it worse. Guys, it's actually not that easy to do. There we go. Yeah, cool. I think on a case-by-case basis, let's look at it. Where do I go back? Oh, here we go, down the bottom. So it's a matter of sitting down, Angela, and talking to your subcontractor about what's available to them, and then also what's available to you as an employee that may work. From there, talk to your accountant. We're able to then go through this and map it all out, right? Because it's pros and cons. We want to find a win-win for everyone. All right, next one. So can we pause super payments? If your SMSF owns your business, can you change the rent in this case? Yes, Veronica, I believe it is the case that we can do that. They are independent third parties of each other. So you can look to the standard provisions that would apply if it's a third party landlord or your super fund is a landlord. Definitely on the option to prevent the cash burn. Volkswagen said no to us. You need to talk to us about it. Are you aware of any grants available for small businesses to adapt and go online? Good question, Megan. I haven't seen any yet. I was on a state call last week, which they're already preparing for what happens and how do we get businesses going. I think what we need to remember at the moment is right now our strategy is not, my world's fucked. That is not the strategy, in my opinion. I'm happy to be wrong, but if everyone's saying, well, as of right now, I can't run my business. Yep, absolutely. I completely understand that. But the government wants people to get going again. It's only been a couple of weeks, and right now they can't deal with absolutely everything. They have to deal with right now, and down the track, I personally believe they will absolutely look at those things. They may look at relaxing income tax. They may look at changing superannuation guarantee. They may look at productivity bonuses. What I'm encouraging people to do who are thinking down the track is real easy. Start talking about your business plan. All right? That's all the stuff that I sent out last week. I can share that again with you this week if you like. Just hit us up and we'll be able to put that through and start putting a plan in play, because at some point those grants will apply. I was talking to some developer clients during the week. This is an interesting one for you. They've got enough money to last them right now. They haven't stopped. They're going to keep engaging consultants. They're going to keep engaging planners. They're going to keep engaging everything that they need. They're going to keep talking to council, because in their view, when this thing blows over, they want to be ready to go. I've actually been talking about for a while now, finally launching my educational platform, which was due to come out in July, August, September, with a 2-day, 15-hour-a-day intensive event that will be run on Business 101, the no bullshit guide to the fact that small to medium business is fucking hard. It'll be a playbook for businesses in that space. Why do I share that with you? We're accelerating that. We've decided that we're going to do that right now, and we're going to bring that forward, and I've already been talking to parties about how we get that going. The reason for that is we will come out the other side. This will pass at some point. I don't know when that is, but it will pass. Is it terrible joke? You know, actually, I won't even say it because it actually is terrible. But it's about quitting, right? You don't need to quit. If it's the case that things are too hard right now, I understand that. There are options on pausing the brakes. And for some of this, I'm truly sorry that unfortunately, you may not be able to get through. Here's a good point. If you've done the right thing by people as a business owner, I guarantee you people will find a way to back you down the track. This is why it's important not to burn bridges unnecessarily. This is where this whole relationship thing is so important, because we need to rely on them now. So start looking at how do I reshape that so that when those grants do come out, you're ready to go. All right, so that's that one. Any grants? Hairdressers are closing left, right and centre. Should we close as well? We are keeping to the doors and thus paying all wages associated with it. Good question, Amir. I think the answer is, what's your break even? We need to look at the break even, because if we pull out rent, we pull out rates, we pull out insurance, we pull out payments to banks, maybe it's the case that we can operate on skeleton staff, provided the federal government is saying that you're complying with all those rules. We need to make informed decisions on should we stop or not, and we need to check our data. So even if you write it all out, boom, 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 that's fine. How does that compare to your financial information? And if the two of those overlay, then potentially it is a yes or shut. But if you've got the ability to get cash injections, and this is a big one I've been saying, I don't know if the government is going to turn around and say, you can't get the grant if you've quit. I don't know that answer. They haven't said yes and they haven't said no in relation to that. But we do need to remember that all this money is coming through. Other questions? I think that might be it. Have we got any other ones floating around on the other side? Thanks. Count me in. Our pleasure. Oh, that's a bit of a longer one. Looking good. Blah, blah, blah. Zoom into the Word doc a little. Sorry, Christina. I'll be able to share some of these things. Yes, 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 yes. All right. Fantastic. We can't not pay suppliers. That's a really good point. Thanks, Bobby. Massive shout out to Bobby. I think the important thing in all of this, folks, is communication, communication, communication. If you are in a situation, and I'm in this boat myself, I had 2 0 paydays this week. If you're in the situation where you decide not to pay people, you need to think about what that is in the long-term sense. That's very much the case that I've said about thinking about the rear view mirror of hindsight. It all comes down to the Australian motto and theme, which is doing the right thing. How do we do the right thing? We've got to have a conversation. Couldn't see any of the Q&A or chat comments today. Right, we'll have to work on that. If you've had an okay, good financial year, should you keep paying mortgages? No, do not do that in my opinion. I'm not providing financial or legal advice, waving the hands. I don't think so. It's low-hanging fruit. The banks are deferring everything at the moment. It's not going to hurt your credit rating. So as a result of that, tip it into a separate account. Make sure that you get the bank to extend so that you've added to the war chest. We don't know what this thing looks like down the track. Folks, I think that's it. How do we defer insurance? Good question. Call your broker. Get on the phone to them. Talk to them about those conversations. I think it's important to make sure that you still remain insured. So what that looks like depends on your individual circumstances. Can you go into a payment arrangement? Can you change what that looks like? Because the last thing you want is to not be insured. What about managed funds where minimum payments are required per month? Can't pull the funds out. Should we continue or close it down? Great question, Tish. Talk to your financial planner. If you're in managed funds, you should be talking to your planner about what that looks like and coming up with a strategy. Should you move all of your money from the Redraw facility? Good question, Amir. I brought that up earlier. Not providing financial or legal advice in any way, shape or form. I do think it's the case that you currently have Redraw facilities for a reason. Whether you elect to withdraw that or not is up to you. However, there could be benefit in doing that. Yes, you've got to incur some interest, but right now is about being liquid. Right now is not about making decisions for 12 months down the track. You're making decisions to get your business through the next 2 weeks, 1 month, 3 months to get yourself out the other side. Are we deferring personal loans as well? I believe they are. They're not announcing it everywhere, but you need to ask. I brought this up earlier on. I definitely think the starting point is communicating with all of them and asking for 6 months deferral. If you're not successful with that, call us. Call your accountant, talk to us, explain what you've said and what you've not said. Because do bear in mind, communication is the response you get. If you don't end up in a situation where you get the right answer, well, don't say no. It's a changing daily basis at the moment. What happened on Monday and what happened today are two different bloody things. So let's make sure of that and let's re-communicate. Check in with your advisors. I think you missed the last part of my question. I'm still going to defer, just not until July. All right, yes, Veronica, I think at the moment I keep coming back to the same scenario, which is we don't know what it looks like down the track. The banks may turn around and the government may turn around and say, look, this doesn't really work in its current format. It's going to be 12 months. Could be 24 months. It's a fluid situation. That's why at the moment we need to be focused on break even. What do I need every week to make sure I plug the gap and don't have any bleeding? Jason Andrews, yes, many banks have deferred deferral on home loans, business loans, equipment loans and personal loans. Talk to your bank to confirm. The key is we just don't know the answer on some of these things, folks, so don't just cut your nose off to spite your face. If you can get the low-hanging fruit, get the low-hanging fruit. Do the right thing by your suppliers. Yes, same with credit cards. They fall into that boat. Cool. And I think a part of it's because I don't believe we need it. Like you said, we may need it. If you may need it, do it. It's low-hanging fruit. If the phone's ringing less now, you've got more time to do it anyway. You might as well. It's not going to hurt credit ratings, in my opinion, which is not financial or legal advice. Anything else, folks? I think everyone's starting to kind of hang around there or not. Look, team, from here, hey, mate, please go over cash out offsets account. Presuming you can defer loans without. Yes, that's exactly right. I would be looking at your offset accounts and how you can withdraw that money so that you have cash reserves in other accounts, maybe with different banks. Maybe you spread that out. You need to talk to your broker. You need to talk to your bank. I'm not providing financial and legal advice. If you're stuck about deferrals, get my number off James. I've been helping people who are stuck. Absolutely. Jason Andrews, you're a legend. Thanks very much. That's very much what we need to do. My view on property prices, who knows? I actually have my house on the market at the moment. It's not because of this. I made some decisions prior to Christmas about it. I don't know what all that means. People say, look, we're turning away from the equities market and people are looking at other asset classes. There will always be fluctuations in those things, not providing financial or legal advice. I think that's an individual case-by-case basis on what's going to happen. I definitely think the world will change. There's no two ways about that. What does that change look like? Not entirely sure. Our most important thing, guys, and I know I've said it a lot of times, is right now is not about thinking about 12 months' time. The only thing you should be thinking about, which is 12 months' time, is your morals and who you are as a person. Don't go and make stupid, selfish decisions right now if you don't have to. Yes, we still need to think about ourselves first, but as leaders, we've also got obligations to make sure that we see this through, because right now it defines us. So our actions, absolutely, we should be thinking about in 12 months' time, right? In terms of how we're judged based on those decisions. But in terms of what our business looks like, now is not the time for that. Broadly speaking, we might have a view on those things and start thinking about those plans. Now's about getting through. All right, okay, that's us, I think. We'll give everyone 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, folks, here's one final hot tip for all of you. I bite my fingernails. I found a new use for hand sanitizer in all of this. Use hand sanitizer as much as you can because you'll stop biting your fingernails. It tastes like crap. So there are some positives in all of this. We're Australians. Let's make sure we look after each other. Let's embrace it. Use hand sanitizer with your kids. They won't bite their fingernails because I won't anymore. Shoot, folks, we're going to do this on a weekly basis. There will be a Sunday session next week. Get it out to your friends. Get it out to anyone. Share the links. We'll send that around a lot quicker than we did this week. We'll be more organised in that space. Hit me up. Send me any emails you want. We're here to help get everyone through it. I've been talking to people who are business owners that we don't deal with on a client basis, and I'm consistently sending people information. You need to make decisions based on information, not propaganda and bullshit in everything. Cool heads must prevail. Let's lean into this. It's time to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Thanks very much, folks. Stay tuned. We'll see you soon.